we got Greg Sankey that wants to make some changes to the NCAA basketball tournament, and he wants to cut out some of the smaller conferences from having that automatic bid. What is your initial take on that, Caleb? Because that would seriously turn the basketball world in terms of the tournament on its ear. I don't think there's any question about that.
So let me give the exact quote that Greg Sankey said. And this isn't an ESPN article just about the future of the NCAA tournament, whether they go to larger leagues or whatever. And Greg Sankey started talking about all these close competitive games within top 50 schools. And he said, quote, "We are giving away highly competitive opportunities for automatic qualifiers from smaller leagues. And I think that pressure is going to rise as we have more competitive basketball leagues at the top end because of expansion," unquote. What Greg Sankey is saying is I want to nix the automatic qualifiers from lower leagues to get more SEC teams in. Guys, I told you last year, I told you when I started this show, Greg Sankey doesn't care about what you love about college sports. He cares about lining his pockets, and he is willing to destroy everything you love about college sports for that reason. This would absolutely wreck March Madness. Could you imagine if this philosophy and what he's talking about actually happened? Every team from the SEC with a winning record in basketball would make the NCAA tournament. Why have a regular season? Just throw out the regular season and start March Madness in freaking December and have a 300-something team tournament and just go from there. What's the point? Greg Sankey's trying to kill every regular season in college sports because he wants to line his pockets with a big postseason that involves every SEC team. This is a terrible idea, and it's just another piece of the pie to show that every person running college sports right now doesn't care about what you love about college sports. They care about what makes them richer.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
You are ridiculous.
Portions of the program brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals, the Tennessee tradition? RickTerryJewelry.com, RickTerryJewelry.com. Tell them that Off the Hook Sports sent you. Support our sponsors. That's why we're here. I want the top 64 teams, no matter what conference they're in. As far as automatic bids, how many automatic bids are there now? About 30, correct?
34. I think 33.
Okay. I think we would agree that there are probably, let's say, 12 that are very, very deserved, like SEC, ACC, right? They're probably 12, and then they're probably a third of those, or we could make an argument about, right? Like the Colonial and stuff like that. If you cut those out, those, let's say 12 teams, to have 12 better teams, and it's by some sort of RPI, that's what I would go for. And I like quality. I want more quality, like Quality Tire Pro in Chattanooga. Stop by and say, hey, Bo, because they do full service automotive brakes, alignments, oil changes as well. Downtown Chattanooga Quality Tire Pro. Say, hey, Bo, tell them Off the Hook Sports sent you. I want more quality, Caleb Calhoun, and that would do it.
So, Dave, you want teams that go 16 and 14 to get to the NCAA tournament from the SEC? You want that?
They have a tougher road to hoe, yes.
What's the point of the regular season? Just get rid of it. What you're saying would just nuke the regular season. What is the point? You just talked about the spectacle of UNC Duke. That game's already stupid when both teams are going to the NCAA tournament. Okay?
I just completely disagree with that. I love that game. That's an awesome spectacle. I love it. If they're in the ACC finals, and I know that both teams are still going to make the NCAA tournament and potentially play again, I still watch it. I go out of my way. It means something.
You are going to kill the sport. If you ruin regular seasons, you kill the sport. It's the number one reason baseball's collapsing right now. They decided back in the 90s or back in the 2010s, let's let 12 teams make the playoffs. This is so stupid. Expanded. What is up with the obsession with expanded? Because this is basically an expanded playoff for the big teams. Okay. What is up with the obsession with letting more teams with mediocre records in? What's the point of the regular season? I'm honestly asking this question. Why have it? Why have the regular season?
Well, I still think there are 300 basketball teams. So if you did an RPI approach, like I would do with not just basketball, I would do with football. I wouldn't do the selection committee. If I were in charge of this, it would be an RPI type of approach Caleb, if you did that, you'd still have the top 64 teams. So you would have to play yourself into that position. So the regular season still does matter. Now, if you want to throw a really, really challenging argument at me, then throw this at me. The winner of a particularly small conference, no matter what they do because of who they play, can't climb the RPI ladder and can never be a factor when it comes to actually making the tournament. So, in other words, if you're a very small school that plays a weak schedule, winning your conference tournament doesn't matter at all. So I want you to chew on that while I tell you Sports Treasures carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia, Sports Treasures TN, Sports Treasures TN, daily updates. Follow. So out of that 300 and some Division I basketball programs that you have right now, there's probably 50, 80, maybe even more that it doesn't matter what they do, they can't make the tournament. That is the one really bad part. I was going to use another bad word about my argument. That is the one really bad part.
I mean, you're right. What's the point of them even playing? I mean, and this is the thing. I mean, by the way,
there's still a point of like the top 200 playing because they could put themselves in that position, right?
No, because they go look at the BPI and look at the RPI. They're all from the power conferences that we talk about, outside of Gonzaga, maybe, or like those like 4 or 5 teams. They're almost all from there. So what you're talking about is, first of all, if you want to do this, if you want to keep these teams out, fine, kick them out. Then only go to 32 teams in the NCAA tournament. Don't expand the tournament to allow these lesser teams that didn't do their job in the SEC or whatever. My point is this: at least with these smaller conferences getting in, you put inherent value on the regular season with auto bids. If you get rid of auto bids and just say take the top whatever, there you totally devalue the regular season across the board. I want the regular season to mean something. This is my thing with football, and we'll get to in a little while, but I'll just stick with basketball right now. This is why I hate when teams complain about not getting into the NCAA tournament. You always hear the 69th best team complain. You go to 80, you're going to hear the 81st best team complain. You had how many chances to get in? I think the NCAA tournament is absolutely ridiculous when you have this many teams. What's the point? And this is the problem with the NBA. Everybody's like, oh, the Lakers Celtics is such a great rivalry. Yeah, when it's in the NBA Finals. When's the last Lakers-Celtics regular season game anybody has ever cared about?
I go out of my way to watch that game.
Okay, and you don't really care. There's no intensity.
But I'm a Celtics fan. But to your point, I'm a Celtics fan. So I mean, and then you had
if they lose, you're not.
And really, you have so much star power. I mean, when they played, when's the last time that you haven't had an All-Pro type of player? I mean, the two franchises are run to the point that there's star power. So you could want to watch that game on a Sunday afternoon, even if you don't like either team, right? So. Again, I completely get your point. I want to see the 64 best teams, and listen,
I want to see Gonzaga, the best team.
Okay, Gonzaga is a great example. Okay, Gonzaga, unlike football, in basketball, you can make yourself a real program. I mean, Gonzaga is not a mid-major. Let's just stop calling them a mid-major. They spent big-time money, 8 digits, to be a basketball program. Now, can they spend closer to 9 digits to be a football program like TCU's trying to do? That's a lot more difficult. And some of those can't do that in football. But you can't tell me you can't do that in basketball. You can. You can turn yourself into, if not a blue blood, then somebody that matters. Tennessee has done that over time. They may not be a blue blood, but they matter. And I'm sorry, if you can't do that and you can't put yourself in the pertinent 100, let's call them, or the pertinent 150, then you don't get to be in the tournament. So therefore, I think my regular season matters quite a bit, Caleb, and I think you're overly discounting it.
No, because the rating draws in the regular season. All right, let's talk about ratings and actual interest. Let's be honest here. These smaller conferences that get to the tournament, nobody's watching their regular seasons, right? At all, anyway. That's not what really matters.
When you say nobody, you don't mean fans of their program, but
yes, just in general, average fans. Okay. The point of the auto bids is to make the regular season matter more for the big name teams, so not everybody from the power conferences get in. If your way happens, you're going to collapse. First of all, let's get this out of the way. College basketball regular season already sucks. It's the worst regular season in any sport. Okay, it's terrible. It's boring because nobody cares. Because we all know that the top teams when we're watching them are going to the tournament.
It's about to go through a renaissance, though.
Sorry,
it's about to go through a renaissance.
No, it's not. No, it's not because every team's still getting in.
Nope.
I don't care about the quality of the talent. The top 10 teams are all getting in. Who cares?
Now wait and see.
Dave, you would have me.
Wait and see. Let me explain to you why. Because a little bit before your time, when I was your age, slightly younger, I knew the starting lineup for Duke and North Carolina heading into every season. NIL is going to allow you to keep more players. There's going to be better narratives year to year. I'm telling you, college basketball, the regular season is about to get a lot better. You could still argue that it's not good enough, but in 5 years, the college basketball regular season is going to be much more engaging and entertaining than it is right now. And I would defy you to argue with that.
All right, Dave. You say
By
that.
the way, I'm going to pull up. You finish your point. I'm going to pull up our friends at TristarHatsCo.com so you can check out some of those spring styles. Go ahead.
Dave, it didn't even matter. There's no renaissance to undergo because it didn't even matter in 1990. You may say what you're saying about Duke and North Carolina, Dave, right now. When you were a kid, tell me the most memorable college basketball regular season game you watched. Has to be regular season. Can't be NCAA tournament.
Well, that's fair. It'd probably be the Midnight Madness with Tony Harris.
That's not even a game. You can't even name a regular season game that you watched that you remember.
It would have been any of those. It would have been any of those Tennessee-Kentucky games that they always had on Saturday. That seemed.
And you can't name one specifically. You can't even name one specifically.
No, I can't. No, I'll give you that.
Caleb is right. The regular season has been irrelevant in college.
Somebody who was paid to cover football. I mean, this is the time.
Let me ask you this, Dave.
It's the time of year that I only covered basketball for 5 years. I was getting ready for spring practice. By the way, TristarHatsCo.com is on your screen if you're on our video platform. Go to TristarHatsCo.com. We thank our friends at Apex Apparel for bringing us the opportunity to provide you with the absolute best. TristarHatsCo.com, TriStar Hats, and I've got my shirt on right now. TriStar Hats is fantastic apparel. Spring styles are out. Okay, Caleb, finish your thoughts.
You are going to destroy the basketball regular season is already destroyed. You are going to destroy it further because it's the automatic qualifiers, Dave, is not about getting those automatic qualifiers in. It's about making sure that mediocre power teams don't get in. That 16 and 14 teams in the SEC don't get in because then those teams are never going to. You want to talk about load management? You're going to set up a system where starters won't play half the year in college basketball because they know they're going to the NCAA tournament. You're setting up that system with what you're doing because here's the point. There's no home court advantage in basketball at all. So seeding doesn't matter. Seeding is the stupidest, most overrated thing. And they say, oh, you're playing for the number one seed. You're playing for the higher seed. You have something to play for. Who cares? Okay. This is a big deal. The regular season is already borderline dead in college basketball, and people only watch the next 3 weeks. I can tell you this, guys, we cover college basketball. Dave and I will tell you straight up. We'll just tell you. Football beats basketball year-round except in the 3 weeks in March. Is that fair to say, Dave?
Yeah.
Yeah, because nobody cares about the college basketball regular season. You're now going to get it to a point. I'm just saying, if they do this, I won't even talk about the college basketball regular season ever again. No one come talking to me about it because I don't care because everybody's going into the tournament anyway. Okay, you're ruining the sport. And this is Greg Sankey doing it for himself. And I'm just going to be, Dave, I'm asking you, do you think Greg Sankey cares about the long-term health of these sports? Or does he care about lining his pockets?
I think he cares about the long-term health of the sport.
No, he cares about lining his pockets. He doesn't care about the long-term health of the sport. This will kill the sport.
I think they're mutually adherent.
No.
I think that
nobody's going to watch the regular season of college basketball with this. Just like nobody watches the Daytona 500 anymore because it's not part of the Chase Cup.
If you want to paint me in the minority, you can. But I think Nick Saban was being altruistic when he talked to Congress. I think Greg Sankey is altruistic. I think he has the best interest of the SEC at heart when he makes decisions. I don't think it's about him. He's already got plenty of money.
College football playoff is expanding. It's official. They're expanding to 14 teams, which is this is another feather in my cap of they're destroying the sport.
Okay, so that's just coming down the pike. 14 teams in and of itself, aside from destroying the regular season. What do you make of that number?
Well, so here's what's happening. Basically, Pete Thamel reported it. Heather Dennis reported it. They basically have come to the agreement, and it's going to be reported later today at some point. But their format has not been specified yet, but it's all but written in stone that the auto bids, I believe what I've read is that the auto bids with the college football playoff it's not going to go immediately to the SEC and the Big Ten for the first round buys. Basically, all they had to hash out was the television agreement and the agreements between the conferences. And so I think this is disastrous for college
May I ask
football.
a question? Can we stop? Because I'm sure we're going to get your opinion on it. But why did we even say 12 to 14 in the first place? Can somebody tell me the impetus behind that notion? Why somebody raised their hand in a room and said, hey, I'd like to go to 12 to 14. Second, anybody? Why did this happen in the first place?
This is going to be formalized in 2026. I think the biggest reason it happened is because the SEC and Big Ten realized that by going to 12 teams, they totally devalued their conference championship games. And they want those to matter. So they're like, oh, let's do 14 to reserve buys for them. Guys, it's not stopping at 14. This has been my argument the whole time against expansion. You guys thought, oh, they'll stop. They won't stop. They're never going to stop because they realize there's more money in the postseason.
Okay, so do you think impetus, not impotence? Do you think some of the message for it? Do you think that meeting between the Big Ten and the SEC was essentially about this? I think we all thought that maybe that meeting was about a mega conference, but maybe it was as simple as just being about this. Let's make sure to get Big Ten number 2 and SEC number 2 in the playoff. Was it as simple as that? I think it was probably more that than any sort of mega conference talk.
It was about revenue and money. They wanted they floated that to get shot down so they could fight for more revenue. And guess what? They're getting more revenue. The Big Ten and the SEC.
But I'm talking about the meeting while they got together. Everything's about revenue, but the meeting when they got together about 2 or 3 weeks ago, was that?
Yes.
I thought at the time that was about a mega conference, and I was excited because I thought that snowball was starting to go downhill, but I'm cooling on that now. I think it was just about working this 14-team playoff out.
Yes, exactly. And so that you're right. And that's exactly what this is about. And just for the revenue distribution, the Big Ten and the SEC would each receive 29% of the base revenue of the college football playoff. Big 12 and ACC, 17% and 14.7% respectively. 9% for the group of 5, 1% for Notre Dame, and less than 1% for UConn, Oregon State, and Washington State if any of them get in. So the Big Ten and the SEC were trying to negotiate, saying we want a bigger piece of the college football playoff revenue.
Okay, so I know this is hard for you, but I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Will you do that?
Yep.
Okay. I know it may destroy the regular season, but as far as the actual format, and let's say that some of these SEC and Big Ten teams are locked in like we've been led to believe, do you believe, Caleb, that this is a good format in 30 seconds or less?
I believe this is a good format in terms of for fun. I think it's terrible for the sport. It's a fun format during December, because it's going to make for December games that are going to be epic.
Like around Thanksgiving and Christmas when you get the cousins together and did you ever do the bracket? Like this would be fun, but you don't think it's necessarily good for the sport. So it's fun. I got you. I see where you're coming from.
Yes, it's fun, but you just sacrificed 3 months of what we love about the sport for 3 weeks. Okay, fine. By the way, bowl games are the new NIT. Bowl games are the new NIT.
They always were to me.